Hello and good morning. Joining you live from the White River Fish Sanctuary here. We have here another live stream drone patrol of the fish sanctuary. We're currently flying towards the eastern side of the sanctuary, which is the Prospect Sans Souci area. And today I just wanted to take a little time to tell people about coral reefs, what they are, why they're important, and what White River is doing with corals within our program and within the space of our sanctuary. So coral reefs are one of the most important marine ecosystems in the world. They provide habitat for at least 1/4 of all marine life throughout some part of their life cycle. They provide protection from storm surges and storms, and they also prop up the tourism economy of the tropical areas of the world that they exist. But what are corals exactly? So corals are a colony of organisms that come together, and form the structures that we see and know as coral reefs. They live inside the skin of the corals, and they filter feed the oceans, and they produce the hard skeletons underneath which creates the hard structures that we know, and which creates the habitat, is what provides the protection from storm surges and coastal erosion, and is what supports that entire marine ecosystem and the marine ecosystem of the tropical areas of the earth. Now, why is there so much important put on coral reefs? In that, because they are such an important ecosystem, without them the entire tropical ecosystem would collapse. And there's been many things over the years that have negatively affected coral reefs. Corals are very sensitive to the ocean's temperatures, the sea temperatures, and over many years, the average ocean temperatures have been rising, with massive spikes in the summer months. When there are those spikes in ocean temperatures, corals go through what is known as bleaching, because they're no longer able to support the relationship of all of the organisms that live inside them, that provide food, that are the ones that filter and provide food for the entire colony. They start to evacuate those corals, and that's when they lose their color. So they go from the iridescent yellows and orange and purples and greens, and they go white. They go bleach blonde white. And this is a signal that they're dying. And there have been many bleaching events over many years, with the worst being in 2023, where there were record high temperatures for record long periods of time. In Jamaica alone, the most dominant type of species that is supposed to exist, which are acroporid corals, otherwise known as staghorn and elkhorn corals, lost up to 80% of what was surviving, with live coral populations already being low due to all of the other factors. Some of those other factors, again, over the years include poor fishing regulations, so low fish populations makes the whole ecosystem weaker, and then because of that there's the symbiosis between all of the fish and other marine life and the corals is broken down, and so corals don't survive as well. They're not fed as much. They're outcompeted by algae because we don't have as much reef grazing marine life because it's overfished. There's also been disease events that have swept through the tropical climates that have seriously affected many different types of corals, wiping out large numbers of those very important acroporid corals, but also more recently there's been diseases that have attacked even the larger, slower growing corals like the boulder corals or the brain corals or the pillar corals. So corals have been attacked from every direction. And so it's very important that we put a very strong emphasis and a lot of effort towards restoring coral reefs, because without them, life on the coast, in the tropics, in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, would be completely different. It would not be the same. So what do we do at White River to try and restore, build back, bring back our coral reefs? White River has operated a coral restoration program for many years, since our inception in 2017, which means that we go into the environment and we find surviving corals, the ones that are still around, and we take small portions of those corals and we break them down into even smaller pieces, about the size of one knuckle of your finger, essentially, and we load them into a coral nursery that is out at sea within the boundaries of the sanctuary. When you put them in a coral nursery, it acts the same way a plant nursery would. It's a head start for life for them. So you're taking them away from the stresses of real life, so they're not having to compete with any predators, or they're not having to compete with algae on the reef. They are in the nursery, which is also suspended in the water column, so they're getting better light because they are photosynthetic. They need light to provide food for themselves, as well as they're receiving more nutrients because they're raised up in the water column. And like I said, this is what gives them a head start. It makes them grow stronger, makes them grow faster than they would naturally. And in around 9 to 12 months is the average timeline. Then we remove those corals from the nursery, and then we plant them back in strategic places within the sanctuary, so that it can help to bolster the marine. It can help to bolster the marine environment. We put them in places that are going to help reduce coastal erosion, and those would be mainly the elkhorn corals, or we place the staghorn corals in places that are prime for more habitat for marine life, so giving the marine life more habitat, more places for juvenile fish to hide. Unfortunately, White River was not unaffected by the same coral bleaching event that we mentioned in 2023, which again, unfortunately, we did lose around 80% of the crop of corals that we had even been working with in the restoration program, let alone the wild corals that were still out. From there, we had to slightly change directions, in that we needed to find a new way to run our coral restoration program. And what was decided is that we needed to, again, change tact from trying to plant out as much and as many corals as we can to being very specific with the species of corals and the strains of corals that we're using, because we are becoming so vulnerable to these high ocean temperatures. And so what we did is that we embarked on a journey to start finding corals all across Jamaica. So we went out and we did long swims, long snorkels with lots of volunteers, coral gardeners, marine biologists, and just regular people, fishermen, spear fishermen, to go look for corals that we knew were now resilient to these high ocean temperatures, ones that could resist these extended periods of very hot water. And that's exactly what happened. We went out and we've been able to identify over 400 resilient acroporid coral colonies across the north coast of Jamaica. And from that, we've been able to, again, choose the strongest of those through a number of other identifying factors, and then bring them back into our propagation program. And so we've been able to restart our nurseries, where we're rebuilding the crop of corals in our nurseries, so that after that 9 to 12 month period, we can go back and start planting more corals in the White River Fish Sanctuary. We are hoping that by the end of 2026 that we would have planted over 5,000 corals, just based on our current goals. Obviously withstanding hurricanes, storms, and possibly another very hot summer period with warm ocean waters. Barring all that, our aim, our hope, our goal is to be planting at least 5,000 coral fragments in 2026. And we hope that this is something that people can be excited about, and that will greatly benefit not only the White River Fish Sanctuary, but all of the stakeholders in the area. It will make for better swimming, better snorkeling, more marine life, and we're hoping that people can get behind it and get on board, and that we'll be able to take people out into the sanctuary and show them these successes. If anybody is interested to participate in our coral restoration program, or volunteer, or even just has any questions that they're curious about, feel free to contact us anywhere. You can visit us at whiteriverfishsanctuary.com, drop a comment in any of our videos, and we will try our best to get back to you. And there is about 4 minutes remaining in this drone patrol flight, as it's on its way back to the White River office. And I hope you guys enjoyed the beautiful scenes of the White River Fish Sanctuary, the eastern side of the White River Fish Sanctuary. That would be the St. Mary side of the White River Fish Sanctuary. And I hope you will look out for the rest of our live streams. We will try to do at least 2 live drone patrols every week, where we try to talk about different topics that affect not only the White River Fish Sanctuary, but the marine environment on a whole. Thank you. And that is the end of our patrol today, as the drone is running out of battery. Thank you to everybody who watched, who will watch again. Spread the word, let people know. If anything, it's just something pretty to look at. So, thank you everybody. Bye.